There were 91 invited guests that were there. We believe that there were about 75 to 80 people that were present in the room when this occurred, or that ultimately came to that party. We don't have the exact number because they had a sign-in list and we're still working through some of those dynamics. We don't know that everybody signed in. Of the 21 people that were injured, 18 of them have been identified as county employees. 18 of the 21 were county employees. The other 3 were not county employees. Of the 14 people that are deceased and their identities have been released now, 12 of those individuals were county employees, County of San Bernardino. 2 of them were not. And then finally, one of the questions that came from the media is that you wanted to hear from one of the first responders when we responded to this on Wednesday morning. So I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Mike Madden. Spelling is M-I-K-E, last of M-A-D-D-E-N. Mike is actually one of our administrative commanders for the police department. He's a 24-year veteran. As an administrative guy, he really has a desk job. The reality is, at 11 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday, Mike was on his way to lunch when this call went out, and he didn't hesitate. Mike was the first officer that was on scene, and he was the first person that we had that gathered the first units that went in and addressed this. So I'm going to let Mike kind of tell the story of what they experienced firsthand, and then we'll take a few questions for Mike as soon as he's done.
Thank you, sir. I guess I was just asked to come forward and talk a little bit about what it was that we saw and we experienced yesterday. And I'll tell you that it was something that, although we trained for it, it's something that you're never actually prepared for. When we got the call, I oversee dispatch. It's one of my functions and responsibilities with the police department. And I know my dispatchers. I know the tone of their voice. I know the severity of calls as they're going out. And I could hear it in our dispatcher's voice that this was actually happening. This was a real event. And it was the event that, we have an active shooter, and we have an active shooter going on in our city. And I was nearby. I was less than a mile away, and I started coming this way. And I realized as I was getting closer that I was one of the very first units there. Myself and Officer Sean Sandoval arrived almost simultaneously, and just out of pure luck, because the information was evolving so rapidly, it was out of pure luck that I happened to pull into the right location, which was just south. The road that you see here just north of us, it was just south of the building where this tragedy took place. As I was looking and seeing all of the activity and trying to assess what was happening, I was informed that that was the location where this was happening, and I was asking for officers to respond as quickly as possible, because we had every belief at that time that we had people still actively being shot inside of the building. My goal was to assemble an entry team and enter into the building to engage the active shooter. This mindset and this type of training became indoctrinated in us after the Columbine incident, and that was the goal, that we wanted to get in there and we wanted to stop any further innocent people from being injured and possibly killed. As 3 officers arrived, there was an approximate 2-minute time lapse from the time that I got there until we had a team assembled of our 4 initial responding officers, and the 4 of us then went around the south side of the building. As we made our way around to the east side, it was immediately evident that the reports that we were getting were 100% true. There were victims who were clearly, obviously deceased outside of the conference room, and I relayed that information to the other responding officers and again requested assistance. As we entered into the conference room, the situation was surreal. It was something that I don't think, again, we prepare for, and they try to, an active shooter, we talk about sensory overload, they just try to throw everything at you to prepare you for dealing with that. What you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're smelling, and it was all of that and more. It was unspeakable, the carnage that we were seeing. the number of people who were injured and unfortunately already dead, and the pure panic on the face of those individuals that were still in need and needing to be safe. We got as many people out as quickly as we could. We had approximately, I estimated in talking with the other officers who were with me, probably 50 people responded past us and out the doors. And then we went further into the building, and that was a difficult choice to have to make as well, passing people that we knew were injured and needed assistance. But our goal at that time had to be trying to locate the shooters and deal with them before we could get further assistance in for those people in need of medical attention. I was very glad to see that in a very short period of time, we had a number of other responders that came in and were able to formulate tactical teams and then continue on with the search. And I was then able to pull back from the situation and go back into handling more of a supervisory role and allowing the other officers to continue with the remainder of the search. Does anybody have any questions?
There was still an active shooter. What were you thinking about in terms of there might still be someone in the room? And my second question is, how are you doing personally? How are you handling this?
First question there was, we absolutely believe that there was another shooter. We were told that there were as many as potentially 3 shooters, but again, we were getting information from multiple callers, and people weren't, clear as to exactly how many shooters we did or did not have. Some were seen potentially reporting double, suspects and things of that nature. So we were told that one of the suspects had possibly fled in the black vehicle prior to our arrival, but there were as many potentially as 2 more shooters inside, and when we entered, there was fresh gunpowder and the smell of gunpowder in the air, leading me to believe that there were in fact shooters still.
You were trained for this, obviously, but you talk to people about law enforcement and never been trained for it. How emotional was it for you? I mean, looking at you, it looks like you're accusing your eyes right now.
To be honest, you guys, it was a little surreal. It was, you train for it and you know that your job is dealing in reality, but it seemed a little surreal, but yet, I did the job that I was supposed to do. My job is to go in there and, people don't call the police because they're having a great day. They call because there's tragedy going on, and this was tragedy that I've never experienced in my career, and that I don't think most officers do. And so we had to deal with it, and we had to help bring them to safety and try to bring some kind of calm to the chaos that was going on. So, just knowing though that, yeah, we resolved that situation quickly, but there's so much tragedy that's left behind. There's so many families as we go into these holiday seasons that are now going to have to deal with the tragedy that were left behind by this senseless acts of violence. That's a little tough to deal with.
You talked about the panic that you saw in people's faces. How did you deal with that? What do you say to them? How do you calm them down when you yourself are going through this chaotic situation?
You have to be clear in your orders. The initial 50 people did not want to come to us. They were fearful, and they were in the back hallway area, and that actually heightened my concern and my fear that potentially the suspects were in that hallway holding them hostage and waiting for us to enter into the hallway. We had to tell them several times, come to us, and ultimately they did. And once that first person took the motions forward, it opened the floodgates, and everybody wanted to come and get away from that as quickly as possible. So we can't panic in those situations. These people have already dealt with enough. The last thing they need to see is their police officers panicking.
Was it silent in there, or did you hear screams? Tell us a little bit about the response what you're taking in.
It was extremely loud. The fire alarms were going off. There were people who were obviously injured and obviously in great amounts of pain, and that was evident in it was very loud in the room, and we also had fire sprinklers going off inside the room, so that was adding to further chaos.
Have you been able to try to offer information about the shooters, or just to get a sense they didn't realize what had just happened?
My primary goal was to find out how many and where they were, and I was asking individuals, but again, panic was obvious and apparent, and so we weren't getting a lot of further information in regards to that.
You found the bomb. Did you find the bomb? Your team found the bomb?
No, our team did not find any of the explosive devices. Those were found later.
There was like a holiday party where the decorations, tables, chairs,
That sums it up. Yes, it was. It's a fairly large meeting room, and I noticed upon entry that there's a Christmas tree in there. All of the tables were decorated for a Christmas party, and it just seems so senseless that here's people going into their holiday festivities, and now we were dealing with that.
You talked about the training that you had last week. How do you stay calm? Do you take a deep breath going in there and think about it? Do you feel the adrenaline going through your system?
Yeah, I'm sure I did. But you can't let your emotions override your judgment, and you need to do the job that we're supposed to do. It's what we're trained to do.
What it seems like you for the last day and a half, it seems like an incredible trauma from the victims. Like you yourself and the other story.
I tried to make a point to those officers that I knew were some of the initial guys in with us, which there were many officers who did extraordinary jobs yesterday for our department, and also for all of the agencies who responded so quickly. It was truly overwhelming to see all of the agencies that got here in a hurry to provide us assistance, because just like I said, I was sensing that this was a true event. They had the same sense, and they got here, and nobody hesitated. People knew what their job was, and their job was to try to bring some calm to chaos. And so it's one of those things, I've gone around, I've tried to contact our officers, I've tried to assess how they're doing, talk a little bit about it, and in doing that, maybe that's helping me a little bit as well. So I think we'll all work through it together.
There's a video showing some incredible courage from officers, showing the people trying to get them out. I mean,